Jason Ricci is one of the best and most imitated blues harmonica players of the 21st century. He picked up the instrument as a teenager when he started playing in a punk rock band. His journey started in earnest when he watched and later was mentored by legendary harmonica player Pat Ramsey in Memphis, Tennessee. As Ricci gigged and grew as a player, he found work and support from the Southern blues community. He lived and played with Junior and David Kimbrough of Mississippi, and then worked as a sideman with Big Al and the Heavyweights for more than a year. In the late 90s, he formed Jason Ricci and the New Blood, a band that toured around the world for more than a decade and released critically praised albums like Done with the Devil and Rocket No. 9. Ricci's latest chapter is the New Orleans band Jason Ricci and the Bad Kind, a band influenced by the sounds of New Orleans and artists like The Meters and Dr. John. What defines Jason Ricci as an artist is the fearlessness with which he approaches his instrument and music and transmutes the hardships we all face into unforgettable music. We caught up with Jason Ricci in Florida on tour in hopes of bringing you here the whole story and more.
Hello.
Hello, Jason.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing good, man. Thank you so much for doing this. I know you
Sure.
didn't have to, and I appreciate it. But I guess I want to start with when you were growing up and the music that you were introduced to from a family culture perspective. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I mean, I think the first music that I showed like a genuine interest in of my own was punk music, and that came from skateboarding culture and from skateboarding videos and skateboarding magazines. And that was, music that was made by people and kids that kind of grew up like I did, with the same like suburban angst and disdain for the status quo at the time and the Reagan administration and things like that, And I think that's where, I came up on 7 Seconds and the Sex Pistols and the Ramones and the Dead Kennedys and the Pixies and Fugazi and all that kind of stuff. And that was the kind of original white boy rebellion music of my generation. And then later I got into harmonica, so I was told that I had to listen to blues music. So I did, and I listened to it really just for the harmonica. And then my mother, who was a product of the 60s, had been introduced to some blues like Muddy Waters and Albert King and stuff. She knew who James Cotton was, and he was coming to Maine, and she brought me to see him. And then later Charlie Musselwhite and Buckwheat Zydeco and a bunch of other bands too. And so I started to fall in love with blues. And I felt like, especially seeing some of the original guys like Cotton and stuff, that there was a sincerity to the music that I felt like was also in the punk music that I was listening to. And, I was a big Pixies fan too and stuff like that. And the Breeders and some of the more modern bands from my time, from like when I was in high school in the early 90s and stuff too. So, I just felt like it was sincere.
Yeah.
And a lot of the music that was on the radio kind of wasn't. Like I really wasn't into Kiss. I wasn't into Poison. I wasn't into, Tiffany, right? Or what else was it? What else was it? I wasn't even really into REM, right? Like I just didn't get it. And that music was like, I felt like the blues was speaking directly, from its own source, it sincerely, that's what I gravitated towards it. Plus the musicianship was so good,
Did
and
you have
I never, yeah.
did you have music in your home, like with your parents or any relatives, or was there any culture of music at home besides what you discovered on
Not
your own?
really. No, not really. I mean, like I said, my mother had Howlin' Wolf records and stuff, but it's not like she put them on.
Hmm.
And they were like, it was an abstract, eclectic collection of, Neil Diamond
Sure.
I don't know, Joan Baez and maybe some Bob Dylan. I don't know. I don't remember. And,
Yeah.
just real abstract. And yeah, Eartha
So,
Kitt. I think we had some.
mhm.
Yeah,
So one of the things that we talk about is the aesthetics of music, and basically what's considered beautiful. So when you're listening to something, what do you consider beautiful? What gets you going?
yeah. I mean, if I were to speak from a technical perspective, I'll do both. I'll speak, about music from like a theoretical or like a music standpoint is that the contrast between major and minor creates um, a nice parallel of life, right? Like we don't, not everything is. Sometimes things are so beautiful because of the sadness that exists around us, and then it's only through going through that sadness that we are able to arrive to really see the beauty that it is. I guess it's tragic is what it is, but so when you hear something like the difference between a flatted third and an unflatted third, or a third and a flatted third, it creates a certain dissonance that I think imitates melancholy or a feeling of experience, right? And then in general, I like to speak more generally for somebody that doesn't necessarily know the major scale.
Right.
I would just say that I think anything I'm a firm believer that art imitates life. So anything that musically can replicate uh, what we feel,
Hmm.
and I don't think there needs to be words for that either, right? I think lyrics are great and very, very powerful, but I don't know. I'll give you two words to sum up all this: Charlie Parker.
Okay. I find it fascinating that you said the lyrics aren't necessary because I'm of the other school of thought. I love the lyrics, and I don't know what it is that I gravitate, but my professor is totally on the other scale with you. He's like on the whole the idea of improvisation, and what he's hearing in the music is what's most important to him.
I think it just depends. I can listen to Lou Reed, Leonard Cohen, and Bob Dylan, and never once think about the music.
Mhm.
Um, but at the same time, like there's there's Shostakovich or Mahler or Sibelius or Thelonious Monk or John Coltrane. I mean, come on, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Does it? I don't know. It's like I'm just getting a broader experience. I find lyrics in the hands of somebody like Elliott Smith or some of the other people that I just mentioned to be absolutely stunning and incredible. However, it is still about a subject.
Yeah,
It is.
yeah.
And when you listen to like Opus 47 in D minor by Sibelius, tell me that's not about the creation of the world or what
Right.
or whatever.
Whatever it is to you, yeah.
Pithecanthropus erectus by Charles Mingus, right?
Hmm. Well, I think that's the important thing for me about music too, is that it does speak to, once you as a singer songwriter make something and you let it go, you really do let it go because it becomes ours now, right? Even though it was yours to begin with, when we're listening to it from our own perceptions, and we're making,
Yeah,
we're making the song speak to us, you know?
right,
Yeah.
right.
You talked about the blues, and I know that's hugely important. Obviously, you've won a number of blues awards. The thing that I love about you and your music, though, is you do have a rich understanding of where the blues culture came from. And I think that
Yeah,
you keep
black
that
people.
that
Yeah.
as part of your music, but at the same time you innovate with all of these things. Talk a little bit about what you've done. Is it with the with the boxes and the microphones and the stuff that you've done to kind of customize your own feel around your harmonica music?
Yeah. I mean, I think that there is no question that blues music is music created almost entirely by black people. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
now there may have been Appalachian influences and cross pollination, Latin, Caribbean, Haitian, all kinds of stuff. But the bottom line is that this is a music that came out of oppression and slavery and black culture, and and as a white person that got to live and play with Junior Kimbrough and R.L. Burnside in rural Mississippi before they were very popular at all, before anybody really knew who they were. Like on the level that they're now known, now that they've passed away.
Mm-hmm.
uh, yeah. But the thing that was clear to me was that I was never going to be that.
Sure.
That this wasn't part of like I said about the skateboarding and the punk rock culture. That was part of how I grew up.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up seeing Tony Alva and these white guys with dreadlocks and from the salt water that had matted their hair and skating pools and being dirty and punk rock and torn up shirts, and that's what I grew up in, around
Sure.
independent trucks and urethane and broken boards and sleeping in a house with 15 other skateboarders. That's what I grew up in.
Yeah.
I didn't grow up in fattening frogs for snakes and listening to Sonny Boy Williamson, and I didn't know who Bobby Rush was, or I wasn't fixing to wreck it anytime soon.
Mm-hmm.
It was that wasn't how I grew up. So what I did get out of black culture that I could keep for my own was that the most important thing was to be yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And none of those guys, if you listen to the terrible definitions that Kerouac and Ginsberg had to come up with to describe the beat generation, they were beat. They were beyond trying anymore to do anything other than be themselves. And I guess I just had to get beat a little bit. And in terms of I just had to be myself. So the harmonicas and the music and the microphones and the effects pedals and all of that stuff was just a byproduct of me just exploring me. And really the huge catalyst was probably around 2002 or so, when I had a boyfriend and I came out of the closet. And I came out of the closet publicly in the blues world, and it was not a lot of fun. But the thing that I did, especially in 2001, now it would probably be, I'd probably make $1 million. Unfortunately, I married a woman, so there goes that. But anyway, but the thing was, I gave myself permission to not just come out as a bisexual or a gay male. I gave myself permission to come out as Jason, the kid from Maine that grew up listening to the Pixies. and the kid that's not really sure about everything. And look, but this is who I am. The broken toy.
Yeah.
And this is me, right? And this is it. And if you don't like it, that's okay. And if you don't want to call it blues, that's okay too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not mad. I'm not mad.
Do you kind of lock yourself into a genre?
Man, I'm locked into one because I have an industry that makes money and employs me.
Mm-hmm.
That's called the blues world. And now here's the thing. As I get older, I am much happier settling into that world.
Sure.
And I don't really care what people think about whether or not what I'm playing is blues or not. But the thing is that I'm I've always been a little bit of a rebel at heart. And when I was coming up, there really was not a lot of like kind of punk or rock edged kind of blues guys.
Yeah.
There, I mean, I think Lester Butler was a little close, right? Um, and certainly R.L. Burnside and Junior Kimbrough, but I mean, that would, that wasn't talked about until later. And then the thing is that as I got older, this music has become overrun with rocked up blues people.
God, yeah.
And so
Anthony
now
Gomes, just look across the board and
right. So now I'm kind of settling into a more rootsy approach, and I'm kind of slowly moving out of having much of a rock edge unless it serves the song.
Sure.
And then moving much more into a blues or jazz thing. And I just recorded an entire album in one room with no overdubs, all traditional, some with just straight tube amps, straight into the amp. And we really went after that Cosmo sound from the 50s R&B records. And I'm sort of happy. It's sort of a rebellion for me now to kind of just go back to where I came from. And
I think
start thinking.
It goes back to what I was talking about really early in our conversation tonight, is that the thing that really draws me to you and to your music is that no one can accuse you of cultural appropriation. You've not done that.
Oh, they will.
Well, there are some that will, absolutely. But you have given homage to where the blues comes from. You recognize where it comes from, but yet you're able to put your own twist on it, and you're able to define your sound. And I think that's a fascinating thing to me. Do you think you've cracked the code to your creativity? Have you cracked that code?
I don't know. I never thought about it. I think that I'm so constantly overwhelmed with influences. It's just the process of picking one and sticking with it long enough to let it resonate and become something. I think that's my biggest challenge is I don't have attention deficit disorder, but maybe with music I sort of do. I'm very easily distracted, but the thing is in terms of my listening, like, let's forget about my creating for a minute. Let's just talk about love of music.
Yeah.
I'm a bebop freak. That's what I am. That's what I am, really. I just want to listen to Wynton Kelly and Miles Davis and Bud Powell and Charlie Parker over and over and over again. Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie and Thelonious Monk and Charlie Mingus and Charlie Rouse and Sun Ra, John Coltrane and that's where that Bill Evans in the trio, the Bill Evans trio, and all that stuff. That's what I want to hear all day.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. Cool. All right. Well, any final words of wisdom to my professor? Give him an A. Give him an A.
Yeah, give him an A. He's very persistent. No, I get a really great vibe from you right now, and I appreciate you calling me early. I am in bed, getting a little tired. So that worked out great.
I knew I was pushing the envelope, and I knew it was I knew it was
you caught me in a good
shot,
mood.
but I'm glad I caught you when I did, and thank you so much for the insight. I think this is going to be great for them to hear it from someone else too. I went to him and I said, would you mind if I did my paper from a perspective of an interview? And he was like, what? I said, yeah, I want to interview the artist. He's like, seriously, you have that in? I was like, I think I can try to make it work.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love music. I love all of it. I think the only thing I would say is, it's just changed a lot. Like back in the 60s and stuff, I never heard my mother ever say something like, I'm going to see a blues band or, I'm going to see even a jazz band. It was like, well, we're going to see Miles Davis or we're going to see Janis Joplin. Or we went to see Jimi Hendrix. We didn't say, oh, well, we went to see a psychedelic blues rock artist.
Sure.
Right. Or we didn't classify like that. I really think that's a product of the record stores that's still sticking around. And I think we might see that disappearing a little bit. as now that the record stores are gone. And I don't know. Like, we still have radio charts, we still have blues charts and jazz
Yeah, but
charts. We still have
how
blues.
legitimate are they? I mean, honestly,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
a whole
But
other conversation.
look at an artist like John Batiste. I
Mhm.
mean, look at somebody like that, or Donald Harrison. Like, what do you even call John Batiste? What do you
Mm.
call Donald Harrison? I mean, they play everything.
Yeah.
They play blues, jazz, country, rock, everything, pop, everything. Even Britney was all over the map. I mean, she was great. We love Miley too. My wife and I love Miley. We're blown away by her.
What do you think of Taylor Swift?
We haven't listened to any of her stuff.
Yeah.
Like, we don't know. Like,
It's
we
an anomaly
can't give
for
an
me.
opinion on it.
Yeah, it's an
We don't
anomaly for
understand.
me.
It doesn't seem. I don't know if there's any edge to it at
It's
all.
so
But
homogenized. It's so homogenized,
Yeah.
and it's just like throw it out and see if it sticks. And it's
I
sticking
met
for
her once.
though. Yeah, did you?
I met her. Yeah, when she was 15. I met her when she was 15. Yeah, she was. My ex-boyfriend did her ex-boyfriend's website.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that's how I know her.
I've got a great picture of you and I together. You were doing a show in Concord, I think, with Morganfield, and
Oh yeah, I remember that gig.
goofy ass picture. And then you drew a little cat on my. I brought you a harmonica case
Hey,
to sign.
Yeah, I'll send you my email when we hang up, and stay in touch. We can talk anytime.
Dude, I would love that. All right, man. Thank you so much. I'm gonna let you get back to bed. I appreciate your time.
My absolute pleasure. I hope you get an A.
Thanks. Good night.
Okay. Bye bye.